Hello my darlings, I hope you're all well and having a fabulous day. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you a quick recap of Celebrity Big Brother episode 4. I am dropping daily quick recaps of this whole season, so if that sounds like something that you're interested in, click the subscribe button below so you don't miss out on any videos. And without further ado, let's just get into it. If you haven't already guessed it, it was nomination night. No more Mr. and Mrs. Nice Guy, but let's face it, some guys and girls came in not so nice. Anyway, the morning started with Louis in the diary room. In yesterday's review, I said Louis seems to have calmed down, but I take that back. I spoke too soon. The guy is back on full smoke, firing on all cylinders. Big Brother asked him how he thinks Gary's doing after being nominated. And he literally went on a whole Save Gary campaign, saying he wouldn't have picked Gary, he feels like he's got more to offer and he's not just related to the royals, there's something about him. And then went on to say, at the time, i.e. at the beginning, he didn't know ZeeZee. He's getting to know her now, but he would have voted for her. So it's clear that Louis is not a fan of ZeeZee, and that is perfectly okay because you can't be everybody's cup of tea. You can guess who he voted for when it was his turn. It was definitely ZeeZee, and his reasons were he doesn't know her, which, okay, fair enough, but isn't that why you're in the house, to get to know these people? And then he further went on to say, there are so many better people in the house that are better known and better talented. Her celebrity status is not deserved. She's the least known person in the house and she's too sure of herself and opinionated. Now guys, I wish it ended there, but it doesn't. A bit later on, after all the nomination drama, which we will get into in a minute, he was having a bitching session with Sharon and Lauren, and he continued to berate ZeeZee. So they were all talking about how opinionated she is. So backstory, she's obviously ruffled a few feathers, and Sharon was basically like, you know, she's young, right? She's young and she's coming up. And Louis was like, well, she hasn't done anything. She hasn't done anything in life. And to be fair, Sharon did pull him up a bit. She was like, no, she has actually done well for herself and I admire her for that. And Lauren semi-defended her as well. I think she said she's clever. But to be fair, she finished up with, she's getting on my nerves, which is fair based on what happened. So, back to Louis. What this means is that because she hasn't achieved anything, by his standards, she doesn't deserve to have an opinion. This guy is rude AF. No side eyes given this time. I think this is blatantly disrespectful. So rude, so rude. Anyway, let's talk about ZeeZee. So she's obviously been rubbing a few people up the wrong way. I feel like she's a Marmite character. You either love her or you hate her. If you don't know her, as I know I have a few people watching from the States and Canada, ZeeZee gained her popularity through social media, and I believe you could call her a social commentator, and she's a TV host. So she's quite well known for being very opinionated sometimes with no regard. She's very blasé. So I can understand with such a prickly persona, it's always going to go one of two ways. But I don't think she deserves to be spoken about in that way. I think Louis took it too far because that's not just your opinion, you're actually being rude. Anyway, back to her dramas. So her first encounter of the day was with Lauren. They were basically both preparing a fruit salad for breakfast, and Lauren didn't like the way ZeeZee was cutting the oranges. Lauren was basically like, are you going to leave them like that? And ZeeZee was like, yeah, what's wrong with them? So basically, Lauren wanted the oranges to be cut in bite-sized chunks, which I agree with, right? Because when you're cutting up oranges, if you're just going to leave them as whole segments, what's the point? Anyway, and ZeeZee, I am that person. Anyway, and ZeeZee was like, I don't care about food presentation. I'm not that person. It's all going to be eaten. It doesn't matter. Whereas, as mentioned, I am very much a food presentation person, so that would wind me up, to be honest. So, they kind of went backwards and forwards a bit, but it was kind of light-hearted, if I'm honest. ZeeZee then sat down at the table and started making snarky comments about Lauren being too precious about the fruit, and Lauren overheard everything. She then got into a clash, a war of words with Ekin-Su. So they were talking about Love Island, and basically ZeeZee said she would never do Love Island, but being as though it's in a hot country, it's like getting a free holiday. And Ekin was like, well, it wasn't a holiday for me. And ZeeZee said, maybe we didn't get to see that side of things. And Ekin was like, well, I can assure you it was anything but a holiday. It was bloody hard work. You only got to see 40 minutes out of, a full 24 hours recording. And ZeeZee was like, well, that's what I said. And Ekin was like, no, you didn't. And she was like, yes, I did. And blah, blah, blah. And there was going back and forth. Those two are really similar because ultimately they both like to have the last word. So that ended, and again, ZeeZee literally sat opposite Ekin talking to Marisha about the whole exchange, and Ekin basically overheard everything. To be honest, I feel like it was a bit of a Mean Girls vibe, but I both think they give as good as they get. In fact, with both of the situations, it was a bit of a Mean Girls vibe. So anyway, I told you, too much tea tonight. My cup is overflowing. Anyway, let's get on to the nominations. So first of all, Big Brother said that Sharon was exempt from voting and being voted for because, as discussed, she's a temporary housemate. And since Gary is already nominated, he's exempt from being voted for, but he was able to vote. So first up was Ekin-Su, and her first vote was ZeeZee, of course, based on all the Love Island tension and back and forth. And Ekin was basically like, she just couldn't let it go and she had to get the last word. And I thought, okay. And her second nomination was for Fearne. And basically she was saying that she feels like, and I feel like this may be the case, this may be the one and only time I agree with Ekin-Su. She said she feels like Fearne is playing a role and it's making her feel uneasy. And then she further went on to say that she really opened up to Fearne when she really opened up to Fearne and, kind of, poured her heart out to her, so to speak. But she felt like Fearne wasn't listening to her. Now that I can't quite understand, because if she's alluding to the conversation that we seen aired on the first night, Fearne was all in, listening and giving the girl advice. But if she's referring to that scene there, I can't agree with her. But if she's referring to other things that we may not be privy to, then so be it. But I do feel like there's something going on with Fearne. I feel like there's something going on with her, and I don't feel like she's as Mrs. Nice Guy as we think. Anyway, the next person to vote was David, and his first nomination was Louis because he doesn't do much around the house. Basically, everybody said that Louis is a lazy so-and-so, and he literally does nothing. And his second nomination was Levi. So it seems like Levi's been a bit too much of a kitchen boss, and he's literally controlling or trying to control everything, that goes on in the kitchen, and he's not giving everybody a chance. And to be fair, he's not the first person to mention Levi's kitchen control. Anyway, the next up was Levi, And his first vote was ZeeZee, because he's saying she makes people feel uncomfortable. And although it's her job, or it's part of her job and persona to be that, person, he doesn't think that she should conduct herself in that way in the house. Because, at the end of the day, they're all there to get to know each other. But to be fair, maybe that's her. Maybe that's her true personality, maybe it's not an act. The second person he voted for was David. And basically he just said that David's one of the only people in the house that he hasn't connected with. And he's finding it difficult to connect with him because he feels like David's putting up a barrier or a bit of a block and he doesn't want to let him in. And then, this was really surprising. He was like, "Big brother, can I have a minute?" And he literally started sobbing. I didn't expect that. It's quite sad, to be honest with you. Anyway, everybody could see that, he was, quite upset and he found it hard, and they kind of consoled him. Next in the room was ZeeZee, and of course, she voted for Ekin-Su, and she basically said they rub each other up the wrong way. She thinks that Ekin-Su is who she is most likely to get into an argument with. They both like being right. And then, of course, the second person that she nominated was Lauren, due to Orangegate. After that, we had Fearne. And Fearne, which surprised me because I felt like those two were getting on. Like, a lot of her scenes before she became besties with Gary were with him. But she voted for Levi. And again, because of his bossy kitchen antics, she said because he's been too possessive in the kitchen, not allowing her to cook. He likes things done her way. And when she does cook, she feels like she's under supervision and inspection, and she doesn't like it. And quite frankly, I would feel the same because I hate being watched, especially when I'm cooking. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, and then the second nomination for her, which again I found to be quite funny, was Ekin-Su. I'm not really sure about this one, but basically she said that Ekin-Su, I feel like she feels like Ekin-Su is a bit disingenuous, and she keeps trying to get her to come into the hot tub and wear one of her bikinis, and she's basically trying to get her to do things that she doesn't want to do. I think that's the gist of it. And basically Fearne was like, "I've been there, I've done that, like you offering me your size 6 bikinis when really I'm a size 14, it's not making me feel good." I feel like Fearne is going through a bit of a situation. I don't even want to say potentially it could be the menopause, but she's very tearful because she also cried earlier on in that day, and she did say they were happy tears, but she was crying, and she's also cried a couple of other times this week. Something's going on there. Something's going on, which I'm sure we'll find out about. Anyway, I feel like she's got a bit of a complex about age, and I think Ekin-Su could be a bit too threatening for her, which may explain why Ekin-Su feels like she's not being listened to when she is confiding or speaking to Fearne. Next up was Nikita, and he voted for Fearne too. So he said that she's a bit less proactive than everybody else, and she kind of keeps herself to herself. So I'm guessing basically, he's not getting a chance to get to know her. And then the second person he voted for was Lauren. And again, he says he feels like he hasn't got to know her, and he feels like she's playing a role rather than being herself, just being, her true natural self. So that was that. Then we had Colson, and he also voted for Lauren. She came up a lot tonight. She came up a lot. So what he said about her is that he finds her basically a bit rude. She keeps getting his name wrong and calling him Colchester. And basically, after, so many days in now, he's expecting her to at least try to get his name right. He just feels like she's not trying with him, and she's not trying to connect with him. She's a bit rude. And then the second person he voted for was Ekin-Su. He says he's tried to get to know Ekin-Su, but he feels like she's just blocking him, and she's not making any effort with him, and he feels like he's pissing her off. And the reason for this is because they had a bit of a, I don't want to say altercation, but they had a bit of a to-do earlier on in the episode, and she basically snapped at him, and it was completely out of line and out of place, to be honest. Marisha was next into the room, or Marisha, and her first vote was for Lauren. And basically what she's saying with Lauren is that she's too privileged, and that everything in and around the house is, you know, a problem for her, and she's kind of like, you know, got a bit of a lordy attitude or complex in comparison to everybody else. And her second nomination was for David, which I could understand. Well, actually, no, I wouldn't have voted for him. Anyway, she said, he makes her laugh, but at the same time, as time goes on, she feels like it might annoy her, which I could probably get that, because as we are seeing, he is like on level 100 all the time. She was also tearful, as she found it hard to vote. She felt bad for voting. And again, everybody was kind of consoling her, and, you know, Levi was agreeing, you know, that it is hard. Next up, we had Gary, and he voted for Lauren too, which again, surprising. Says he loves her bluntness, but it borders on mean, and he doesn't think she's a kind friend, basically. I think he said that she was coming down on him, but I don't know in what context. Anyway, and then he voted for ZeeZee, and he basically said that, you know, at the end of the day, when they first came in, they were both in the same boat, as in they were both got nominated, and when he was finally, you know, voted to be nominated on Friday, she didn't come over and see how he was. She didn't check on him, and he doesn't feel like that's kind. But I thought it was quite interesting hearing him speak about kindness and, you know, people being unkind to him, when he's been so unkind with his words about, you know, the royal issues, which we won't go into. But then I think to myself, is all of that blabbing and all of that talking, is that a persona thing? Do you know what I mean? Really, is this who he is? I don't know. Anyway, then we had Lauren, and of course she voted for ZeeZee based on Orangegate, and then her second vote was for David, and it's basically because he's just too loud all day and all night. He could be heard over her earplugs. Then we had Louis, and as we know, he voted for ZeeZee, but he also voted for Bradley, and his justification for this was he's young and green with no life experience, and basically he likes the girls better. Again, what the hell kind of justification? What the hell kind of justification is this? The problem is, Louis, you're jealous of Bradley because he's young and handsome. Get it right. Anyway, finally, we had Bradley. And Bradley voted for Louis, again, for not playing, you know, a part in the house, you know, with the cooking and the cleaning, etc. And then he voted for, his second vote was for Lauren, based on all of these comments that she keeps continually making for him. So he's been, you know, really trying to cook. So it may be that he's not a good cook by the sounds and the looks of things. It may be that he's not a good cook. So he's been cooking, but she's been commenting every single day about his cooking. But I think the final comment, made him feel really bad. To be honest, I literally had a tearful moment this evening watching one of his scenes with Marisha, but I'll get into that in another video. I think I'll get into that in the additional video that I'm going to make. But I think he's such a sweet soul, and it was sad hearing that he felt so bad, and you can tell that the guy wouldn't hurt a fly. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, as you can probably guess, this week facing eviction, as well as Gary, is Lauren. So in reality, we haven't seen a lot of her scenes or exchanges aired. However, she's definitely been pissing, obviously, a few people off. She tried to hold it together, but she was very emotional about it, and ultimately, I don't think she wants to go home. So she seems to have formed a crew with Sharon, Louis and Ekin-Su. So they were consoling her and trying to work out who could possibly have voted for her. So she went into the diary room and, you know, she was just sharing how she feels. And she said the biggest issue for her was not knowing who exactly nominated her, because she doesn't like living with snakes. But I thought, what a load of rubbish, because you're playing a game here. Like, somebody's gonna vote for you, just like you voted for somebody else. I mean, it's an even exchange. So I thought that was a bit of a nonsense. And furthermore, you're a self-confessed Marmite character. Do you know what I mean? People are either gonna love you or hate you because of the kind of character you are. So anyway, guys, that was it for tonight. There's so much more tea to sip in regards to this episode, I'm telling you, but I'm really trying to keep these videos short and snappy. What I might do is make an extra video for you to watch over the weekend, speaking about all of the other gems that weren't discussed in these main highlights. So drop a heart in the comments down below if you would like me to do that. And we're pretty much at the end of the very first week. Who do you think will be leaving the house? For some reason, I think Lauren may be going home. Despite Lauren having a big fan base from Real Housewives, I feel like the public may save Gary because they think he could have more royal tea to share. And he has been getting a lot of airtime, so I don't know. What do you think? Share your predictions in the comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe. This simple action helps me so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.